Wow, what an emotional week with the release of the many Jewish captives from Gaza and the psychological warfare that Hamas is playing with the Jewish people in Israel and abroad. Yet we as a people know that in every generation, darkness tries to eradicate light. Our enemies try to annihilate our people. Yet God is with us, and in the end, we will always prevail. Ki Immanuel. We see this, my friends, in this week's Torah reading. Parshat Vayishlach in the book of Genesis tells us one of the most mysterious and mystical stories in the entire Torah. Our forefather Jacob, after he returned to Israel 34 years after he left the land in which he was not in contact with his brother Esau, he decides to dry the tears and maybe make up with his brother, and he sends angels saying to Esau, asking him, "Come on, my dear brother, leave the past behind. Let's turn a new page." Yet the angels report that Esau neither forgot nor forgave, as he advanced with 400 soldiers to fulfill his angry oath, as it says in the book of Genesis, to kill his brother. As he said, "Let the days of the mourning for my father draw near, and after Dad Isaac passes away, I will kill my brother Jacob." Jacob was horrified. He was prepared for war against his brother. He split his camps in two. He had a plan of a military surprise against Jacob, and he did against Esau. And then the strangest things happened. In the middle of the night, a stranger came and pounced on Jacob, and he had the intention of killing him. Yet Jacob strikes back to defend himself, but the attacker manages to give a decent blow from behind, in what we call in Hebrew the Gid Hanasha, in the sciatic nerve. You know what the sciatic nerve? It's a nerve that descends along the back of the body. It starts at the bottom of the spine and descends on top of the swelling of the flesh, which is right on the back, and the pain, the nerve goes straight down the leg all the way until the knee. This nerve activates the muscle in the waist and in the legs area. And because of the blow and the pain it did to Yaakov, it says Yaakov was left lame. Jacob was lame. For the rest of his life, he had difficulty carrying his leg. And as the fight and the struggle with this messenger from Esau came, the stranger stopped fighting. It was almost dawn. And Jacob realized this isn't any stranger. This is an angel. And he didn't let him go. And he said, "Please let me go," the angel said. "I got to go praise the Lord. I got to sing beautiful Shira." But Jacob says, "I am not letting you go until you give me a blessing, because you are a heavenly angel." And when the sun rose, Yaakov was healed of a sciatica affliction. It did hurt him later in life, but he was healed partially. And as a result of this episode, after the angel blessed Jacob, from now on his name will be Israel, not Jacob. It says that since then, there's a law in Jewish law that from that time on, the descendants of Jacob, that means the Jewish people, may not eat the part of the displaced tendon near the sciatic nerve, which is on the hip socket of an animal, until today. That's why kosher animals, you can eat the front part of the animal, the behind part, near the sciatic nerve, we don't eat it. Why? To remember this event. To remember how Jacob was attacked by the angel, and that's where he was hit. And that's where he was hurt. And that's why we don't eat that till today. Friends, why is this event so important and so essential to become the only event from the beginning of creation of the world to the Exodus that we have a commandment that we must remember and observe what happened? And why is this event more eternal and critical than Noah's rescue in the ark of the world? Or Abraham's heroism in the war of the 4 kings? Or Joseph's rescue from prison in the pit? Those stories have no mitzvah related to it or attached to it. Yet this nerve-wracking event, a pun on the words, does have. And secondly, and of prime significance, why do we focus so much on the place where Jacob was hit? I mean, the stranger intended to kill Yaakov completely from head to toe, and only accidentally he hit the sciatic nerve. He equally could have hit his eye, his ear, his left knee. I mean, when we remember the Exodus from Egypt, Do we focus on the hands that worked so hard when we were slaves? Do we remember the all-encompassing slavery and our miraculous rescue? Of course the latter. That's what we focus on. The rescued. That we were saved. We have freedom. That's Passover. So why don't we commemorate the life-saving, all-encompassing miracle of Jacob's survival against this angel instead of commemorating it with saying, we don't eat from the Gida Nasha, the sciatic nerve, because this is where the angel hit Jacob? In addition to this, it's honorable and respectful. I mean, is it honorable and respectful to dissect our forefather where he was hit? I mean, does it really matter? I mean, it's not so respectful. I mean, the main thing was attacked by the angel, and Jacob was saved. Why is it so relevant, this story with the sciatic nerve? And that's why we don't really eat today the hind part of the animal that's around the sciatic nerve. There must be something deeper than what meets the eye. So the Rebbe in Likutei Sichos, volume 30, finds here a hint of one of the radical, revolutionary, and fundamental innovations that the Baal Shem Tov revealed in this world. And this idea expresses a revolution in thought about the sanctity of life and the close relationship of each person to God. And what more appropriate time to discuss this than the Shabbat before Yud Tes Kislev, the Shabbat which is the day of the birthday of the Hasidic movement. You see, friends, the struggle between Jacob and the angel of the night was more than a struggle between two individuals. It actually represents the struggle of light over darkness. The struggle of the infinite flame that is the Jew in the confining constraints of the exile. Because this event foretells that exile will never accept our existence. And in every generation, as we see now, our enemies will rise up against us. And as part of that struggle, we will be bruised and even lamed. We will wake up broken and wonder, can we survive? Can we recover from this pain? Can we overcome this limp? Jacob exemplifies that though we may be injured, we will never be destroyed. Though we may be beaten, we will never be beat. And though we may be broke, but we as a Jewish people will never be broken. And that's why the fight is aimed at Jacob's thigh. Because a hip is a reference to the reproductive organs, a reference to the future generations. Like the language in the Torah about Jacob's descendants in the book of Exodus chapter 1, where it says, Vayihi kol nefesh yotze yerech Yaakov shivim nefesh, which translates, all the fruits of Jacob's loins were 70 souls. When they came down to Egypt, Jacob was only 70, and they left many years later with over 2 million. The war of the angels aimed at the continuity of the generations of our forefathers and foremothers. And the deliverance from his hand means that the people of Israel will rise and continue forever, while our enemies will perish, as we have seen in history. And friends, this is the general message of this story. But the idea is much bigger. The supreme providence is not directed only to the salvation of all of Israel, as we say Klal Yisrael, but to the salvation of Rabbi Yisrael. That means the individual person. Because divine providence determines the future and destiny of every individual. And more than that, within my life and your life, providence is involved, or divine providence is involved in every detail, which they will be effective and which task will be completed safely. And friends, to remember and incorporate how the divine providence focuses even and especially on every precise and specific inch of our lives, we commemorate the precise and specific limb which was wounded and healed. You see, the founder of the Hasidic movement, the Baal Shem Tov, he claimed the idea of divine providence is something that is a fundamental belief as a Jewish people. To the extent that we must believe that even a blade of straw lying on the ground is by the decree of God, who instructed that it should be placed there so an animal can have what to eat if it passes by. And I have heard that by individual supervision it is placed in the end specifically on this side of the street and not on the other. Because the Baal Shem Tov was not even ready to forego even a grain of rice. He believed that not a flutter of a butterfly, even that is supervised by heaven. Every single minute, every single minute detail carries a significant meaning for all of creation. And all the olive blades of grass look the same. The truth is that each one has its own private mission, which changes the world in its own way. We know the story of the student who followed the movement of a stray leaf in the wind until he discovered that this leaf, was on its way to cover an innocent worm suffering from the cold. The Rebbe brings a great parable for this. He says, a man looks at his house with an overall view. What does it mean? For him, the main thing is that it should be comfortable to live in, and it doesn't matter to him whether the marble will be white or black, or whether there will even be marble at all on the kitchen counters. The main thing is to have a solid surface to cut cucumbers or tomatoes, whatever he needs to do in his kitchen. But his wife, she sees the details. She knows the beauty. She sees the details of that makes up the house. Harmonious perfection is created from individuals who each contribute their part. From a plate that is placed in the display case on its right side and not on its left. And in her eyes, if the plate is broken, the overall beauty of the house is damaged. To comment on two contemporary scientific innovations that support the way of the Baal Shem Tov. First, today we know that no two snowflakes are alike. Each has its own individual shape. Second, we're familiar with the concept of the butterfly effect. You can actually Google the butterfly effect, which claims that a butterfly's wings can cause a change in the weather that will lead to a change in the entire atmosphere and can cause a tornado on the other side of the globe. Check it out on Google. The Alter Rebbe actually brings two pieces of evidence from the two Talmuds, the Babylonian Talmud and the Jerusalemite Talmud, for the Baal Shem Tov's teachings of divine providence. And this Shabbat, the 19th of Kislev, is the day the Alter Rebbe was released from prison. It is called the Rosh Hashanah for Chassidus. He says in the Yerushalmi Talmud, it is told about the moment when Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he was in a cave for 13 years because he was hiding from a Roman emperor who didn't let him teach Torah. And after 13 years of seclusion in the cave, during which he escaped the sentence of death issued by the Romans, he came out into the light of the sun and debated what to do next. Should he return home? Or should he first find out where the decree against him stands? Is it safe to come out of the cave? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai saw a sight that amazed him. He was sitting at the mouth of the cave and saw a hunter breaking through his fortress to capture birds. Suddenly, a heavenly voice decreed, Demos, mercy! And the bird was saved. He said a bird will not be destroyed unless decreed upon from on high. How much more so a person? And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai discovered that even a bird doesn't fall unless condemned from heaven. And from this he understood about himself that the Romans would not be able to harm him if he was not condemned above. And the discovery planted peace and hope in Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It was also told in the Babylonian Talmud in Tractate Chulin, the famous Rabbi Yochanan, when he saw a bird called the shalach, the stork, he quoted the verse in the book of Psalms, chapter 36, where it says, your judgments are like the vast deep. And Rabbi Yochanan was standing on the bank of the river and he saw a bird of prey called the shalach, the stork. It descends from the sky, dives speedily to the depths of the water, and pounces on a specific fish and quickly kills it. The descent from above and the honing in on a certain fish amazed Rabbi Yochanan. I mean, imagine a missile launcher aimed from the sky at a fish whose time has come. And he marveled at how far the divine judgment reaches into the depths of the sea to catch a fish destined to return its fish to its soul maker. Wow. Why was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Rabbi Yochanan so surprised? I mean, of course, they knew about divine providence, hashgacha pratis, that God leads the world. I mean, these were the greatest rabbi of their time. What filled them with awe and the scope and the depths of God's oversight? I mean, everyone understands that God intervenes in the leadership of nature, of when it comes to major moments, like such as the Exodus from Egypt, or the 6-Day War. That's where God has to interfere. But why interfere in the details of poultry or birds or minor issues related to a junior person, such as arriving on time for a meeting or recovering from an illness. I mean, truthfully, what does it matter to the leadership of the world if the bird catches the right or the left fish in the sea for lunch? Come on. See, friends, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Rabbi Yochanan noticed that life is not composed of massive, monumental events. Life, friends, is composed of the tiny details, minute moments, subatomic particles managed from above. And this idea carries with it a great message about the meaning of life. God sees us more than a group of musicians in an orchestra. Rather, each individual musician plays a vital instrument, a most critical note, a critical track in composing the dwelling of the presence of the divine, the Shekhinah, down here below. And just like every note in a symphony, every detail in life is significant. And therefore, every place you go and every experience must have a spiritual meaning. A Jew can't just say, I'm just on my way, this too will pass, and we'll wait for better days ahead. No, my friends, this day is the greatest in life, and correcting it in Torah and good deeds will create the butterfly effect that will make Israel's redemption imminent. Let me share with you a story. 23 years ago, in the year 2000, it was noon at a diamond merchant by the name of Tamir. He crossed the corridor of the diamond exchange in the city of Ramat Gan in Israel. He entered the office of a neighbor, a veteran Tel Aviv diamond dealer, and he saw on his friend's table the entire table was full of objects. And the man behind the desk said, I fought with my parents, said his friend. He was angry. He said, I don't want to have anything to do with them. I'm throwing away all the gifts I received from them. And next to the table was a big trash can, and it was full of school certificates, souvenirs collected on trips, and a small gift that a child receives from his parents. Mr. Tamir looked at the bin of this man, and he saw inside a small wooden frame with an American check for $200 inside. The check was actually from the Rebbe of blessed memory, written in 1989. That year, the Rebbe gave out checks to help people, symbolic contribution to build new Chabad centers, new synagogues. It was an encouragement for the new construction. In 1989, that check was written. Now, Tamir was not very observant. He had no deep knowledge about Chabad, but it intrigued him. And he asked to take the check out of the bin. The man behind the table, this man from Tel Aviv, was really angry at his parents. He said, take it, it's insignificant to me. I don't need it. 3 months later, he and his wife, Ma'ayan, were invited to have a Shabbat meal at the home of my uncle, Rabbi Menachem Volpa. He's a Chabad, first Chabad Shliach in Netanya over 40 years ago. And they were thinking, Tamir was thinking, what can I buy the rabbi as a gift? I'm going over for Shabbat dinner, maybe a bottle of wine, a box of chocolates. But his wife said, you know what? There's a check from the Rebbe. Maybe this Chabad rabbi will actually be interested. You got it from the other guy. They gave the check to the rabbi, to Rabbi Volpa, my uncle. And they saved themselves actually the cost of buying a bottle of wine. The rabbi was busy, you know, every Chabad rabbi, Friday afternoon, he's running here and there, getting ready for Shabbos. He took the gift without looking at it. 15 years passed, and Tamir started doing diamond business in Moscow, Russia. On the 10th of Shvat, in the year 2014, he sat in the big synagogue in the central Moscow, Marina, Russia, and he heard the manager of the building, Rabbi Mutti, telling someone that yesterday there was a big fundraiser in Moscow, and they sold a dollar bill. The Rebbe would give dollars for tzedakah. They sold a dollar bill from the Rebbe for $4,000 because it's a dollar with great blessing. Tamir thought to himself, oh my gosh, if a single dollar from the Rebbe sells for $4,000, how much is a $200 check worth? I spent my life thousands of miles from home to earn a few shekels and rubles, and I held a treasure of $500,000 that I gave away for free as a gift for a bottle of wine. I gave the rabbi this $200 check. What did I do? He consulted his wife, and she said, you know, I really think you should call Rabbi Volpa, the rabbi you gave it to. But they were too embarrassed to do so. A few months passed by when out of the blue, my uncle, Rabbi Volpa, calls Tamir. He said, listen, remember me? I'm organizing a fundraiser for the Chabad institutions in Netanya. I would love if you would participate. So Mayan said to the rabbi, we will donate double what you ask, but we're disappointed. Because 15 years ago, you received a check from us that was worth a fortune. And you never mentioned anything about it. We never heard. We gave it to you. What happened to it? Now it's the rabbi's turn, and the Rabbi Volpa responds, the truth is that the check was lying all these years and I did nothing with it. He said a few months ago there was a tragedy in Ramat Gan, and there was another shliach, Rabbi Mati Gal. The shliach passed away in Ramat Gan after he was ill, and I was thinking how I could help his widow and his children who want to restore the work that the father did with Chabad. So I gave that check that you gave me so many years ago to Mrs. Gal. And I have no idea what happened after that. Now Mayan, suddenly, she just wasn't sure why, but she called Mrs. Gal. And the Mrs. Gal, the widow of the husband that passed away, said they had a fundraiser to rebuild their work at Chabad. And in exchange for a significant donation, they gave the check to a well-known high-tech businessman, his name, Mr. Reb Shlomo Kalish. Mayan realized that the check was lost to them and decided just to leave it at that. Went from one person to another to another. After a few months passed, and Tamir crossed the stock exchange again. He entered the office of the same Tel Aviv friend where the story began. And he said, one thing I don't understand. How did the check that I take from you so many years ago reach your father, Mr. Kalish? After all, your father's not observant. He has no connections to Chabad. How did he receive a rare check from the secretary of the Lubavitcher Rebbe of blessed memory? And the son, the original son, answered, my father had a friend in Ramat Gan, near the stock exchange, a Chabad rabbi called Rabbi Moti Gal. At one time, Rabbi Gal ran into financial difficulties, and my father gave him a really nice donation. And the rabbi didn't know how to thank him. So he gave my father his most precious treasure, the check from the Rebbe. Full circle in life, my friends. While we live to tell this tale, it's not hard to see. Hashgacha pratis, divine providence, always checks out. So friends, may the battle begun that took place with our forefather Jacob close to 4,000 years ago. The battle between the exile and redemption. The battle between darkness and light reach its ultimate victory. A victory of complete everlasting peace, with the redemption of all of the hostages, all the captives in the land of Israel very soon. And may we merit to see the battle of darkness overcome with the coming of Mashiach. May this darkness become light. And you know how you push away darkness? A little bit of light pushes away a lot of darkness. Let us create that light, friends. Please, my friends, light the Shabbos candles in honor of the Shabbos. Put on the tefillin. Give a little tzedakah. Make sure to have a mezuzah on your door. Do what it takes to create that light. And if every one of us creates a little bit light, and a little bit light, and a little more light, with millions and millions of points of light, we will create the ultimate large light. And we will eradicate all darkness in the world. And we will merit a time when Mashiach will come. There'll be no more pain, no more suffering, no more exile, no more captives. It'll be a time when life will be filled with meaning and purpose, and the light of God will fill this world like the waters that covers the ocean. Friends, you can do it. Shabbat Shalom.